Following the absolutely incredible Pool B encounter between Ireland and South Africa, I'm going to be rating each of the players' performances and giving them a score out of 10. And at the end of the video, I'll select an overall man of the match as well as a best player for each of the teams. Now, I'd really appreciate it if you could share this video around what game it was. So please do share it with someone that enjoyed the game. And yeah, I'd really appreciate that. So starting off with Ireland, the front row, boy, they had their work cut out in this game. I'm giving Porter an 8.5, Kelleher a 6, and Furlong an 8. Now Porter gets the extra 0.5 over Furlong simply because, look, this guy played 70 or 75 hard minutes against the Springboks. He faced 2 front rows and 7 other forwards for South Africa. And what's that? He would have faced 15 forwards throughout the course of that game. And yeah, look, as a prop, as far as minutes go, 70 and 75 minutes is just phenomenal. So he did incredibly well. Furlong came off a little bit earlier on, but he put in an absolute shift as well. They did concede a good few scrum penalties, which is why their scores aren't higher. But the reason I've not impacted their scores too much is because, look, most teams would be conceding penalties against that Bok front row. They were just absolutely immense at scrum time. Kelleher gets a 6 from me. I feel bad doing that because he put his body through it in this game. The line-out darts, I think they lost 5-6 line-outs, and look, if they lost the game, you'd really look towards that as being a reason why. So they got away with one today, but yeah, they have to tighten that up before the knockout stages. Moving into the second rows, now look, these are relatively low scores. I don't like giving these scores, but for me it is a 7.5 for both of these. I'd be giving them both 8.5s if it wasn't for the line-out. They both have to take responsibility for it. It could have really been costly. So yeah, they get 7.5s from me. As I say, look, I've taken a mark off each of them for the line-out darts. I'm not sure who bears the most responsibility, whether it is the hooker or the second rows, but look, it has to be sorted out, simple as that. Moving into the back row, I've given Peter O'Mahony an 8, Van der Fleer an 8.5, and Doris an 8.5. Emphatic performances all round from the Irish back row. They got through so much work. Obviously, they didn't have the luxury of South Africa of taking 2 back rowers off and swapping them out for fresh forwards, and they really dug in. So fair play to them. Van der Fleer obviously fighting off a dislocated finger in the match, which was pretty gruesome to look at in the first 45 seconds, but he did well to continue. Doris, wow, what a player he is for Ireland. Whenever Ireland need a ball carrier to call on, Caelan Doris is the man. Look, he received the ball off lineouts consistently, especially when in the Irish 22, and he just carries it so well and looks after the ball, is so careful, and is such a reliable player. O'Mahony, potentially I should knock his mark like the other second rows for the line out, but look, he was everywhere today. He doesn't have the same impact in terms of ball carrying and big hits, but he gets through so much work. And look, when you look at the rucks and the ball speed for the box, and you just see that Peter O'Mahony's emerging from the ruck, you just know he's done everything he can to take off sort of 0.2 to 0.3, 0.4, 0.5 seconds off of that ruck, and just making that ball just that little bit slower. And look, it all adds up in the game. So yeah, he's pivotal for Ireland. In terms of the 9 and 10, Jamieson Gibson Park's getting an 8, and Sexton's getting an 8 as well. Look, the ball was really messy for Gibson Park. On both sides, the 9s didn't have clean ball, and they did really well with the sort of scraps they were given. Johnny Sexton, an 8. I mean, look, no team wins this match without a general at fly half, and he did so well. I mean, look, I didn't expect Johnny Sexton to be doing the famous Johnny Sexton wrap play 5 metres out from the South African line, but he did it, and yeah, the old dogs definitely got some life left in those legs. He nearly went over, which would have been absolutely amazing, and they scored next phase with Hansen in the corner. So Johnny kicked all of his goals as well, which, you know, I'm sure the Boks would have loved that on their side as well. So look, good performances all round from the 9 and 10. Into the centres, Bandiaki, the man of the match, gets a 9 from me. Probably could be a 9.5, and I'm going to give Ringrose an 8. Now, Ringrose went off relatively early for Robbie Henshaw. Now, can we just take a minute to appreciate the depth that Irish rugby are blessed with? I say blessed with, obviously a lot of work goes into establishing that depth, but to bring off Ringrose and put on Robbie Henshaw, who was the first name on the team sheet for the last Lions tour, is just, it's phenomenal. Yeah, Ringrose unfortunately went off, got bumped off in a big tackle, so went off for a HIA. Bundyaki, as I've said, man of the match, busted through the middle of the box on one occasion, went sort of 50, 60 metres, amazing break. We did give away a really silly penalty in his own 22, which nearly resulted in a try, but yeah, good performances all round from the centres. Now onto the back three. James Lowe, 8.5, Hansen an 8.5, and Keenan an 8. Have you ever seen a player, especially a winger, pick up Eben Etzebeth and treat him like a 7-year-old? I mean, I couldn't believe it. Eben Etzebeth went to really crunch him, and he just got underneath him, picked him up. The Irish boys wrapped Eben Etzebeth up, and that was a turnover. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Eben Etzebeth is one of the most fearsome ball carriers in world rugby, and yeah, Lowe just completely manhandled him. I couldn't believe it. So he deserves sort of a 10 just for that. But no, in the game, his left boot was essential, really, to the Irish success. And yeah, Matt Hansen, he did just enough to stay in from the dead ball line. I couldn't believe how close he left it. Just put the ball down. But if you look at the context of the match, if that was scored right in the corner, maybe Sexton doesn't get that kick, and it turns into a 1-point game, and then ultimately a 4-point game at the end. So look, sorry, no, it would have been a 3-point game, I think. So look, it's pivotal that these players really do fight for every inch. And then Keenan, an 8, solid as usual. Look, I think he was a little bit overshadowed by Valemsa. I think Valemsa did outperform him, but he's always solid at the back for Ireland, and no sort of big mistakes under a lot of pressure. Moving on to the box. Now, I'd have to give them a little bit higher scores in the front row, considering their scrum time success. 8.5, 8 and 8.5 respectively. Kitsoff, look, it is what it says on the tin. Brilliant scrummager, just fierce around the park, and they definitely had sort of an extra bit of spite going into this game. They started off, all of the team, especially the forward pack, with just huge physicality, and they really had a massive why. Like, all of these teams are massively physical players, but when they've got a real why, like a real reason to turn up, you could definitely see there was an extra edge. Umbanambi, brilliant as usual. Look, he doesn't impose himself in the same way as the likes of Dan Sheehan in terms of the running game, but he can really knuckle down and put in some huge tackles, and he was superb. Malherbe, 8.5, once again, does what it says on the tin. Huge scrummager, won some good penalties. He did concede one, so maybe I should put that down to an 8, but I thought he was really, really quality. In terms of the second rows, despite Eben Etzebeth being picked up, he does deserve an 8, and Mostert an 8. Both players were really, really good. Did masses of work to disrupt the Irish line-out ball. And look, if they'd won the game, you'd be looking at these two to saying, look, you provided the platform for that. So brilliant stuff from the box second row combination. And then moving into the box back row, these guys really turned up. I'm giving Khaleesi an 8, Peter Steph Toy an 8.5, and then Visa an 8. Khaleesi, his usual self, brilliant leader around the park. He's really developed his ball carrying game. I mean, I always thought he was brilliant in terms of attack and defence, but he does carry with that extra little bit of spite, which is impressive. Peter Steph Dutoy, 8.5. He did make one error, I believe, with sort of spilling the ball 5 metres out from the Irish line, but I believe it was given as a box line out anyway, so he got away with that one. And yeah, I thought he was really, really fierce in everything he did. Real intent and willingness to sort of run through brick walls. In terms of running through brick walls, that is all Jasper Wiese did all day. Phenomenal, once again, really aggressive. I'd expect potentially a little bit more from all of these back rowers in terms of Jacqueline over the ball. I think they could have potentially stunned some Irish momentum a little bit more if they'd competed harder, because Ireland did look vulnerable at times to being isolated, so maybe these guys could have got over the ball a tad more, but look, it's a minor criticism, and Wiese did incredibly well. Now moving into the back line, now this is where things at halfback do go a little bit downhill. I've given both de Klerk a 7 and Lebock a 7. Now maybe it could be lower for Lebock. I mean, look, both of these players were tasked with the goal kicking for this match, and look, I'm going to put it blunt, it ultimately let them down. I mean, look, the team has to take ownership for the loss, of course they do, but when you miss 11 points off the boot, none of which were sitters, I'm not saying they're sitters, I'm not saying they let their team down at all, because that is absolutely not something that would ever come out of my mouth to an international team, but it was missed opportunities. It's probably the for the sake of a better term. So look, they will be frustrated that they didn't manage to convert any of those big opportunities into points, but look, that's how the cookie crumbles, and I'm sure they'll be able to fix some of this up for knockout stages. But ultimately, if South Africa are going to win the World Cup, they have to be executing these 3-pointers, and maybe that's the reason for bringing Andre Pollard back in. Moving into the centres, I thought Diolande was solid. I'm going to give him a 7.5, maybe an 8. I did feel Bundyaki overshadowed him. Made some really good runs. I feel like he conceded a couple soft meters on defence as well, but look, solid performance. Maybe I could give him an 8, but I did think Bundyaki got the better of him. And then Jesse Kriel, I'm going to give him a 7. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but he made some good runs. I feel like he could have done with being a little bit more creative. When Jesse Kriel gets the ball, look, 9 times out of 10 he carries it and takes it in. Now, look, I'd like to see a little bit more from him in terms of variety to his game. Maybe put the boot to the ball, or sort of maybe some switch plays, or just mix it up a little bit, because I feel like he's a tiny bit one-dimensional. And then into the back 3, Colby, quality, an 8. Arendse, a 7.5. And Valemsa, for me, is getting a 9. I thought he was absolutely class. Look, solid performances in the back 3. The reason Colby gets a little bit more than Arendse is simply because he was involved in the game a little bit more. But any of these back 3, when they had their hands on the ball, they looked like they could do something. Now, especially Valemsa, he seems to always get sort of meter through contact, and you think he could get away, then he'd get snared by a secondary Irish tackler. But look, it looked like at any point something could really open up, especially on counter attack. So look, really phenomenal from the South African back 3. Looked very dangerous. Potentially, you could say a little bit guilty of overplaying at times, and when they maybe could have gone with a more pragmatic approach of sort of kicking to compete or something like that. But look, ultimately, it was one hell of a test match, and it went right down to the wire. Now, I think overall I gave Ireland a little bit higher scores, but in terms of man of the match, the man of the South African team, I'm going to give to Valemsa. And look, for Ireland, it's quite hard to not give it to sort of Aki or Doris. I think I will give it to Bundyaki. He was the player in which made quite a lot of meters on the outside, made a couple breaks as well, and sort of gave Ireland the confidence and the front foot momentum. And yeah, conversely, as Irish came out the victors, I will stick with Bundyaki as my man of the match. But look, as I said, phenomenal game. Please do let me know what you think of my scores in the comment section down below. As always, I'm always happy to talk and discuss about what scores were you happy with, what you weren't happy with, and yeah, as long as we come with a measured approach, I'm sure it will all be good. So commiserations to South Africa. You can be very proud of your team, and as the scores state, you had some really stellar performances in there despite the loss. And Ireland, they roll on undefeated in the tournament, and yeah, on to bigger and better things for Ireland. And I'm sure these two teams are highly likely to clash and dance once more. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in my next video.